I found this quote and I really, really like this. This is from a poem from a very, very young poet, but I love this statement. What if I fall? Oh, but my darling, what if you fly? And I really like that. We talked about life without we talked about life without an undo button the other day. And this is kind of a reflection of that what if I fall? Yeah, but what if you do? What if you don't have an undo button and you have to learn how to do it over again? Bet you don't make that mistake again. Yeah, just things that help us, okay? What if I fall? Oh, but my darling, what if you fly? And so today I want to take those first two words, what if? What if? And we're going to build our session around those two words, what if, today, because I think that I think it's important for us to begin to push the boundaries. And the way you push the boundaries out is you start asking yourself, what if? Not in a negative way, not like, what if I fall? But instead, what if I fly? And I really like this quote because I think it kind of helps to set the tone for what we're going to do today. Now, let's get into see what's going on in the group so we can share some things from the group and give some insight there, okay? Ray had posted something, and I don't know if you're on today, Ray, or not. Ray's usually with us, but if not today, that's okay. But he posted something. He asked a little poll with it. And then he came back. Thank you, Ray. Then he came back and he said this: thank you for the feedback. I agree with all of the comments and attempted to enlighten the client from the get-go. This is maybe the most difficult thing that there is. And Ray, you're very, very familiar with this, obviously, from the remainder of the comment. But we have a balancing act between what we would really like to do and what the client really wants. And somehow we have to balance those two out. And we have to be willing to be wrong in order to provide benefit and value to our clients. We have to sometimes be willing to be wrong. And that's the only way that we can meet the needs of a client sometimes. And so Ray kind of walks that thin line here, and he shared that experience with us. So thank you, Ray. I appreciate that, because we can have the best idea, the best design, the best intentions, and the client's going to be convinced of something else. And our job is to try to convince them, but we can't always do that. So thank you, Ray. I appreciate you sharing that. That's a frustration that any of us who've ever had more than one client have experienced at some point in time. And so Ray really kind of lays that out. And I appreciate that. But I love his final comment, life's too short. It's too short. And but again, he thanks all of you for your input and for participating and helping along the way. And sometimes you can take that feedback and give it to a client. Sometimes they don't want it. So it's okay. But thank you, Ray. I appreciate that. That kind of shares the frustration sometimes that we have of working with clients. The next thing, and this is the only thing I'm going to say about this, and I'm just going to say it one time: don't use somebody else's images for any reason. No matter how noble you think your purposes might be, and this was addressed, but no matter how noble you think your purposes might be, or how, there's never a right way to do the wrong thing. From a legal standpoint, from a copyright standpoint, from a plagiarism standpoint, from a violation of copyright rules, there's never a right way to do the wrong thing. And so all of you were very, very good about giving very good feedback about this, but please don't ever, under any circumstances, use somebody else's image, no matter how noble you may think that your purposes are. It's not a good idea. You don't have deep enough pockets. Some companies have spent millions upon millions of dollars to develop their brand, to copyright their names, to trademark their comment, and don't ever do anything to violate that. Stay out of trouble. no matter how good you think the purposes might be. Okay, can you all agree to do that? That's the reason why we give you very careful instruction on how to I apologize. I'm getting tons of messages right now. We had a man pass away last night, and all the funeral arrangements are flooding through on my phone. It's the reason why I couldn't turn the music on earlier this morning. So I will turn that over and not be distracted by it anymore. But yes, let's don't ever do that. Let's make sure that we play by the rules, and we can't find a reason to not play by them. Very important to do that. The next thing is, and I thought this was really cool, and we're going to play with this just a little bit today. Yeah, I got asked a question about copyright this morning just before the webinar went live. Somebody was asking in a totally different environment, what images can I use? And the answer is always only the ones you have permission to use. And that's the reason why we give you all of the stuff that we give you inside of the Usign platform. And excuse me. And I've shown you before where to find that little logo, and we'll look at it again when we open up the platform, where to find that little logo so you can see what the permissions are to use that image. Don't ever, 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 ever use anything that can get you in trouble. You just don't want to do that. So keep that in mind as you go. Okay. This was a really cool thing that John did. John's a pretty amazing designer. And so he put this together. We're going to talk about this a little bit more later. But this kind of fits into my what if. Rick had asked a question here, and he said, what if I wanted to do this? Well, here's how you do it. And John had kind of laid that out for him. So I appreciated John doing that, but it triggered something in my head that we'll use and we'll talk about in just a little bit. Okay. The next thing this was really pretty cool. I like this. And again, this is a very creative use of some things that I think are important for us to do. But it comes up with this question. Rob's asking the question, can we do something like this in Usign? Now, I would flip that around and say, what if we could do something like this in Usign? Well, here's how we do it. And so we go through the process of what does it take to do that? And where do I go? And what tools do I have to have? And do I have the things that I need inside of Usign to do that? And so this is a really kind of a cool thing that Rob has put out here. And we're going to play with that idea a little bit today. We're going to kind of take that what if, and we're going to apply that to this. Another thing that came up in the group, and I thought this was pretty awesome, Deb's been on with us for several weeks now, and I don't know if she's on this morning or not. I didn't see her name come by, but she had posted her logo here and said, this is a logo that I made with logos on it. And I thought it was a pretty cool looking logo. I really like the use of the fonts here, pretty creative use of the font. I'm not a big fan of the containers, but sometimes the containers are appropriate, and they look appropriate. And so the thing that I did, and this seems to be the right way to do this, I can never make a decision based upon the image just hanging out there by itself. So I actually took the logo and I put it on a landing page that I had. From the landing page, it looks pretty good because I don't want the font in the logo to be larger than anything else on the page. It's just there for branding purposes. And so that font is this font. The name is about the same size font as this right here in Video Building Your Email List. And the tagline that goes with that was it was just slightly smaller than that Building Your Email List. So I thought this is a very appropriate looking logo, and it would work well with this particular, the way I've got this laid out in the landing page here. Okay. So one of the things you want to do when you create something is you want to put it where it's going to go. Always put it where it's going to go before you make your final decision as to how does this look. Does that make sense to everybody? I can't decide if this is going to be appropriate until I put it in its context, put it in its environment. What space is it going to live in? And when I put it in the space it's going to live in, it seems appropriate to me. And so I'm not nearly as bothered by the container as I was right here. I say bothered in the right way. Okay. But and understand that that's, hey, Larry, I'm not nearly as bothered by the container around the outside of this. Now, just by itself, it looked a little funky. In its environment, it seems to look very appropriate. I hope that makes sense to everybody. Very important to always put your design in their context. And in the context, you'll have a much better understanding of how it's actually going to look. Okay? The next thing, the very next thing, is today we're going to play the what if game. What if I did this? What if I needed that? What would I do if this? And this is how you develop skills. You expand your horizons by saying, well, what if this happened? What if we did that? What if I took this container and put it around the outside of my logo? What if I removed it? What happens then? All of those things, you have to kind of start to play that what if game. The best way to become a problem solver, and what people pay you for, is your ability to solve problems. The best way to become a problem solver is to constantly be asking that question, what if? What if I did this? What if this happened? What if I clicked here? That's how we created the phrase clickology. What if I did this? So today we're going to talk about some what ifs. All right. Is everybody excited about that? I hope you're as interested in that as I am, because I think it's pretty cool. This is kind of how I function my whole life. Well, what if this? And can I learn something if I do this? And so, the next thing, what if, as a starting point? I talk about this all the time, and so I want to show you something. I have just, what if I'm excited? Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that. Exactly, Brad. That's what coding is about. That's what everything's about. If you're going to create something, then you have to play what if. You've got to start with that. What if we did this? Or what if it was going to look like that? Or what if I wanted to accomplish this? So one of the things that I frequently do, and I do this frequently, and I've talked about this a lot, we call it templateology. But one of the things that I do frequently is I just open up the templates and the template section, and I scroll through that, and I look for with that question, what if, as a starting point. Well, what if I was looking for something that had stopwatches in it? Or what if I was going to talk about time? Would a stopwatch be good? Maybe I can grab this template here and take the stopwatches off of that and use that for something that might be valuable to me. What an interesting, I don't know if I would have done these color combinations right here, but I really like the way that it looks. So I start playing this game. I go through this and say, what if I'd run out of things to do? Well, maybe I should create some Pinterest pins. Excuse me. And so I just scroll down through this and I look at it and I go, what if I did this? Or how does that look together? I thought this was really interesting. There's 1, 2, 3 in a row right here that are about style, and they're all black and white. What does that tell you? Look at the difference in the fonts. Do you recognize something about the fonts? Somebody tell me what, I have 3 fonts going across here. Tell me something about the fonts that catches your attention. I have 3 fonts that say style, and they're all 3 different. What is it about those 3 fonts that catches your attention? I'm waiting. Lots of ideas. Let me tell you what caught my attention. And I knew this, just a minute. And I knew this without even looking. I see the word style right here, bold, blocky. And what is the style? It's got a male in the background. Makes sense? I see this style over here. It is light. I started to say fluffy, but that's not really the word that I'm looking for. But it's light. And what do you see? You see a very stylish young lady in the background, right? And it's feminine. Oh, but and then this one over here is completely different. Three completely different approaches. I think there's a significant difference in the age between this person and this person. And I see that without even looking at the image. I can see it in the font that was chosen. Wow, I've got a tickle in my throat. I'm sorry. But do you understand what I'm talking about? What if I change the font? Is that going to change the message? And we talked about that last week. Ray's correct. We talked about that in Fontology last week as we went through and we talked about how that certain fonts communicate certain things. And we showed you that little video of how that a single font used in a variety of styles, that single font used in a variety of styles has created, has become the standard in the movie industry. And so it's important to recognize what those fonts can actually accomplish for you. Okay. So I use what if as a starting point. And you're exactly right, Clee. There's certain emotions that are communicated. There's certain feelings that get communicated with the font. And I can see that. When I read style here, I have one emotion or one feeling about this as opposed to over here. I shouldn't really even say opposed, but as contrasted with over here, I see something completely different. This one, on the other hand, is somewhere in between these two, you know, I mean, from an emotion and feeling standpoint, somewhere in between those. But this font's really important. And I want you to start to catch those things as you go through stuff and say, okay, I'm beginning to understand that, I'm beginning to understand that there's reasons behind the choices that are made. And it's not just something that feels good to me, but it's something that accomplishes a specific purpose. So now let's talk about the tools that we have before we get to the canvas. What if it's kind of a fun little game to play, particularly when you're talking about the capability of being able to use the background tool? What if I could take the background tool and do this with it? This was an image that Pete had shared with us a while back. And I told you I was going to save this and we were going to use it later on. So I'm going to play with this a little bit today. Can somebody share with Paul where to get the videos from, the replays? I've been posting them just, and let me interrupt here for a minute and talk about that for just a second. I've been posting them in the group, and I've done that because Rose is out on maternity leave, and Rose is not available to get them up into the replay platform. So, Paul, usually the best place to catch those at. Now, a week ago, I was gone most of the week, and so I wasn't able to get the videos put up, but I put both of the videos from the two previous weeks up last week. Actually in the last couple of days in the group, but you will find them in the group in particular. I always put the new videos up in the group, and then later Rose posts them in the support channel, so they're available there. That Pete's just shared the link for many of the previous replays are there, but while Rose is out, we're going to be a little bit behind on that. Okay. So what if I use the background removal tool? We can use this for so much more than just the background. As you see here, I've cut this image in half along the shoreline. All right. We can play with that. I'll show you some things that we can do with that in just a little bit, but and cut that in half at the shoreline. Now, I don't, when we call it the background removal tool, we don't think in terms of, well, what if I decided I wanted to cut an image in half? So I want you to expand your horizons about using the background removal tool, because there's some cool things that you can do with that. If you will learn to see it beyond the label that's on it. We talked about that with Logozyme last week, and how that used Logozyme for more than just creating logos. You can use it for creating icons to use on your website and lots of other places. All right, everybody with me? All right, the next thing is, and this one doesn't look real good, and I'm going to play with this for just a little bit and show you when we get to the platform. But it's fall. And always in the fall, we like to do really cool stuff by using the word fall or something to that effect with leaves in the background. Now, I started out, I was going to do this, and I thought this would be really cool, and I'd have a good contrast. And this is a terrible contrast. So we'll play with that later, and I'll show you how I created this. I left that to show you that these are pieces put together, so you can see how I've kind of put that together. We'll talk about how we did that later on. But and again, this was a use of the background removal tool. And this is the fall is an overlay on top of this fall foliage. Okay. Now, where this right here, I told you we'd talk about this in a minute. This is actually, John had come up with a creative way of creating a heart. And so we can play with that in just a little bit too. So, and I've identified the shapes here so you can see that, but that's exactly what John did right here. Okay. And what if I needed to have a heart? We don't have a heart. What if I needed a heart? Then here's how you do it. You can layer some things together. I saw Ray did a really cool thing with the Cheshire Cat that we showed last week, and how that he was able to duplicate and change the sizes and put some images together to create some really cool stuff. So, all right, so having said all of that, it's time for us to now go to the canvas, and we'll talk about the tips and tricks and things that we can do using the tools that we have available to us. And then I will try my best to answer any questions that you might have. Okay. Didn't even talk about questions when we started, but we'll do our best to answer and address those questions as we get in the platform. So feel free to ask that. If you ask questions, make sure that you precede them with a question mark, so that I can identify that when I'm flying solo while Rose is off on maternity leave. It's a little harder for me to catch up with your questions, but I am well equipped here. I've got my pen in hand, and I will do my best to try to catch up with your questions as we go. Okay, give me a second so I can change my screen here, and we will be, I'll be right back. Okay. Can you all hear me okay now? Make sure we haven't lost anybody or anything. Okay, good. Thank you. All right, you should be looking at my canvas here where it says Fall Festival. Okay. All right, what I did is I created a box. All right, created a box. And in that box, I laid these letters. And I've decided I really don't like the way that foliage looks. Okay, so let's change that first. We're just going to play with this a little bit. We'll play with this image, and we'll see how this looks. All right. I can change this more like that. Get rid of this. And I need to bring this up. Again, this is, and we talked about layering before and how important it is to can use various layers to accomplish certain purposes. Okay, so I'm gonna start pulling this forward. This is it. I've actually got to send this to the back. So we'll go over here. We'll send that backwards, and I can put this on top of this. And that looks a lot better than it did before, right? Okay, now what happened to this? Let's get this and bring it up to the front. And then I have one more. I have my letter down here, and this is it, and that's got to be on the front, okay? Now see what's going on here. Are you with me? Now, I agree. I think that's still too dark for this brown background that I have right here. So we can continue to play with that until we get it so that we like it, okay? And I can do this. Now, I didn't do this a while ago. I want you to see this. I can actually identify the image, all right? That's the image that I want to change. And I'm going to hit my replace button, and I'm going to replace it with that one right there. And using that replace button allows me to do the, what's the theme today? The replace button allows me to do what the theme is, right? What if? It allows me to play what if. And I can use the replace button and play what if for as long as I want to. All right. I can do that. Okay, Carol's asked the question, how did I get the word fall to be see-through? And that's really the trick here. I wanted to get rid of that that non-contrasting background. So now we've done that. All right. And I can, now I'm going to show you how I created that. Let me do this. I'm going to overlay this. We're not going to go through all of the steps that are involved here, but I have to go to a graphic, and I took a shape. And I put that shape in the space where I wanted that to go. Okay, then I took and I made this as big as I possibly could. Now you'll notice in this particular situation that I have saved this font with a thin border around the outside of it, right? Can you all see that? I have a thin border around the outside of that. In this case, I'm going to make that border just a little bit bigger. So I'm going to make the border a little bit bigger so I've got a good contrast. Now, here's part of the issue with trying to do this is that when you're doing it, you have to have contrasting colors here, okay? But now I have this, because I have a border around the outside of it, I have this no fill option right here. If I click the no fill, what happens? The color on the inside of the lettering goes away. So I save that color on the inside of the lettering, and I save it like that. Then what I do is I upload it. And this is where I had uploaded it before, okay? I'm sorry, that's not the one I wanted. This is where I had uploaded it before. And I was able to, and then I changed this color to that brown color that we had. And I then went in and erased all of the stuff inside of the letter, Okay. I saved the background around the outside of it. Takes about 7 minutes to do this. I'm not going to take the time to do it, but you do it with the erase tool. Okay. There's not a really good contrast. What I discovered was there wasn't a really good contrast between that orange and the gray. The other thing that you'll want to pay careful attention to here is that if you have a shadow on, the shadow gets really confused. I mean, it really gets confused as to what you're trying to accomplish. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to mark the outside of your image, okay, that you're trying to do, and then you just simply get rid of everything in the middle. Okay, put it on a transparent background, get rid of everything in the middle. The problem is that there's not enough contrast between these, so I had to change the color of the background a little bit. But do you understand what we're doing there? We're removing the inside of this. Even though it has been no-filled, I still have to remove that because it's not transparent. So I have to remove it in order for it to be transparent. And then what happens is I then have a transparent image, okay? And I will share with you that transparent image. I think that's it right there. I think that's the one that's transparent. No, it's not. Actually, I think I've got one saved. That's it. So that's how I got that. Okay. And I simply removed it using the background removal tool. Okay. But like I said, it takes about 7 minutes to go through that. And you can do this exactly the same thing, right? There's a ton of different ways to do this. I wanted to make this see-through, so I wanted to use it as an overlay. Lots of ways that you can do this. Yeah, I just didn't want to, I didn't want a white foreground is what I didn't want. I didn't want a white foreground, I didn't want a black foreground. So I used a color foreground. But like I said, there's lots of ways that you can accomplish that. The point is make sure that you do, okay? That's what we're trying to do, trying to teach you how to do this. And I think you'll find it kind of fun when you start doing that. Now, you don't want to do that with a whole paragraph, but if you've got a really short word, it's a great way to do that. So you can bring that in, and again, this right here was the overlay that I'd put on top of that. But I wanted you to see several things. What if I don't like the background here? Well, a great way to change that background is to use my background. Let me go over here. Use my background replace tool. I click on the image that I want to replace. That's the image that I want to get rid of. And then I click on the replace tool, and whatever image I select over here will be the image that it will be replaced with. Makes sense? It's a great way to play what if. What if I don't like that background? Well, just change it. Use the replace tool and change it. Okay. And I see about 3 other people with 3 other ideas, and that's cool. That's what this is. That's what this is all about. This is about how many different ways can I do this? What if I did it like this? Or what if I did it like that? Or what if I changed this? Or what if I changed that? Those are that's how you develop additional skills. Okay. Is that clear? So it's that time of the year when we're going to have an opportunity to do these cool things like this. And I just want to share with you how I go about doing that. I think this one's kind of cool. Let's just play this game for a minute. All right. That one didn't go where it was supposed to go. Let me get rid of that. Because there's the image. Now we'll hit replace. And we'll do this. And again, if you change the color of this outside right here, you get some really cool stuff with it. Okay? All right. Any questions about that before we move on? All right, good. Good. Okay. Switch screens here for just a second. Let's go over here and take a look at this. All right. If I need to make these the same size. Okay. We have a round object and a straight line object, and that gets a little bit challenging sometimes. Okay. I'm going to bring this one to the front so that we can make them the same size. Say, I need a heart. Where do I get a heart at? How come we don't have a heart? Make one. Make one. What if you do this? What if I do that? Are we pretty close? What do you think? Now, the challenge is I made these in contrasting colors on purpose. So when you do this, and you can do that, Gene. That's a really good idea, and you can do that. We do have a heart-shaped crop tool. So let's, okay, are we all clear about this, about how you can take images, you can create other things out of them? So another tool that came up, and a question came up and was asked in the group this week about this, was how do I make a circled image? And so let's play with this for a minute. We'll make a circled image. And let me go over to an upload. And I have a whole bunch of just junk in here. Well, let's take this guy right here. All right, now this has been saved with a filter over the top of it. Anybody recognize that? Now, check out the crop tool, because this question comes up a lot. Well, how do I make a circled image like it's like this? All right, so if I want to make that my logo, all right, or I want to put this on the end of an email letter or an email campaign or something like that. So if notice it's got this little save to library clip over here. If I crop that, then what happens is it gets saved in my library over here if I've got that saved to the library thing. Okay, are y'all with me? So I can create this image by using the crop tool. Now, what Gene had said a while ago was you could use the, and so we go back to the crop tool, and there's a heart shape image that's there, like this. Which doesn't always work real well for faces, because the little part that is the heart always goes somewhere in the face, but yes, easy to do, okay? Are y'all with me? But this is maybe one of the most underutilized tools that we have is this crop tool. And because it saves what you crop, and again, I can find things that I think are pretty cool, like this, save it to my library, and now I have this, all right? Make sense? I can even play a slightly different game. Go over here to the background, make a gradient. Let's do something strongly gradient here. Let's do this. And I'm going to save this as an image. Anybody know why I'm going to save it as an image? Why am I going to save it as an image? Exactly, so I can upload it. So now I'm going to upload that image because I can't crop the background. Now I'm going to turn the background back transparent so you'll see what I'm talking about here. So now I can use the crop tool and I can create a very interesting looking image like this. And now I have this. How cool is that? And this question gets asked a lot. Well, how do you create a gradient background? Just like that. Geraldine, I knew that you needed that. That's the reason why I did that in this webinar today. Just so you know. I'm just kidding. I didn't have any idea. All right. So cool stuff that you can do. Just using the crop tool, using something as simple as the crop tool. And then you've got some really cool things that you can do with that. Now, let's talk about, for just a moment, let's talk about the background removal tool. Okay? Y'all good with that? And we will wrap up using the background removal tool. So I'm going to go over and grab an integration here. And I'm going to use a coffee cup. Well, I would if I could click on the right image. And I want to remove the center from the coffee cup so I can put something else in it. So I'm looking for one that seems to be appropriate. Okay. We'll use this one this time. Nah, it's not a very good contrast. Let's use this one instead. All right. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to remove the background from it. But I'm not really removing the background. What I'm really removing is I'm going to save everything else. And we're going to keep all of this stuff out here. I think I've got enough color there. That contrast. And we're just going to get rid of everything in the middle. Now, you see what I have? Okay, thank you, Eric. I'll remember to do that. Yeah, I probably won't do my daughter's photo this time. I think I've done that enough. So now, go back over to my uploads. And we'll grab this young lady's picture right here. We'll move this one to the top. And you see what we can do? Now, another little crop tool that we have that we don't talk about very much. And notice I'm in the custom size. You can't do this when you're in the preset sizes, but you can do it in the custom size. I can actually do this. All right. And I can make this size work. Like that. And boom, there we go. Now, let's talk about the integrations over here. Usign has partnered with people that integrate into the platform so that the images, so that you are able to use the images. I always like to check once in a while, and particularly in commercial situations, I like to check and be very careful. Okay. Actually, I want to show you something here. Let's do this, because I think this is pretty cool. We're going to replace this background image right here with this one right here. Right there. Like that. What do you think? It's like looking in a coffee cup and having a look back at you. Okay, so while we're here, how do I know I can use that image? I click back over here. Do you see the little eye right there? When I click on the eye, what that does is it tells me what the rights to use that. This is from Pixabay. It tells me that it's a free download, that is covered by the Creative Commons license, and that there's no attribution required, and it's free for commercial use. Okay? The answer to your question, Geraldine, is yes, but I always like to check. All right. Pixabay, I don't ever worry about Pixabay. I worry about Flickr if you have Flickr images, because they change sometimes. But for any, and this comes up all the time. Well, how do I know? The way you know is you click on that little I button right there, and it will tell you exactly what you need to know. Okay. And if there ever comes a question, where did you get that? How did you use it? That's what you have. Okay. Because don't ever use something you don't have permission to use. With Pixabay, you have permission to use it. Okay. Now, couple of things. Thomas, let me address that. Okay, that's the reason why you don't want to play in everybody's space. Somebody said just a little bit ago, and I think it was Geraldine, who said, I used to have a whole bunch of, I had to open up a whole bunch of stuff in order to do this. Now I can't remember where I got things from. If I play in my own backyard all the time, I don't ever have to worry about it. Does that make sense? Or was that too much of a hillbilly explanation? You know, I only do this in two places. I have two different platforms, both of which can create images inside the platform. And Usign is the primary one. So I always use it. Okay. And then the other platform has it embedded as well. So I don't ever worry about it. I don't get anything from anywhere else. And that's just, it's for my own safety and protection. Okay. Now, while we're here, there's some really cool things that we can do. Okay. We're playing with this image. What if this is too bright for me? Right. So let's go back over here. And again, we've talked about using overlays forever. And we've talked about them several times already today. And so what I'm going to do is create an overlay exactly the size of the inside of that coffee cup. Geraldine saying she learned the lesson the hard way. And I don't want anybody to have to learn lessons the hard way. All right. Not a good thing. Not a good thing. So now I can take that image right there and I can reduce the opacity of it and make it look like a shadow. What do you think? The way you change the size of any image when it's on the canvas is you just grab these corners right here and you move them. Okay. And yes, I could have reduced the opacity of the image itself. Here's the problem. The only problem I had with doing that was I have to move everything sideways in order to make it happen. And I can do it like that. Now I have to move the coffee cup back on top of it. And the transparency shows through a little bit. So let's take the background. But what happens if, again, what happens if, what if I do this? All right, what if I change the color from transparent to dark? What if I change it to a brown? You see what's happening? Because I've reduced the opacity of the original image, I can do that as well. Now this overlay, I left gray. I could easily have made that the same color there and reduce the opacity of it even more. So it looks like that. I could also have blurred this, all right? So it doesn't have a defined edge. But again, those are just a combination of all the tools that we've talked about in a way that you don't ever feel stuck. Okay, what if I want to do this? Do I have to have something else? No, you just have to figure out how to use what you have. That's the most important thing, is to figure out how to use what you've got. And I can change all of the colors. Change this overlay color here. You can do that, okay? Stephen's talking about the filters. You can throw a filter over the top of this and put it in grayscale like that. Put it like that and reduce this down there like that. See what happens when you do those things? You've taken an image and you've turned it into something completely different. Yeah, put an image in her cup. Yeah, with 4 minutes left to go. Not going to happen, but I might. That would be kind of fun. That would be kind of a fun thing to do. All right. Any questions? This has been fun. This is a fun thing to do. When you start asking yourself, what if I do this? It changes everything. Man, I would love to be able to skew and kern text. I really would. The kerning would be really important. We haven't been able to do that yet. That takes quite a little bit different coding on the back end to be able to accomplish that with the platform the way that it is. When it's under a total rewrite right now, so maybe that'll help. Kim, that was my goal. Lots of creative sparks flying. That's really my goal. What I want you to start expanding your thoughts about what can I do. Oh, I don't have any bubbles right now, Carol, and I don't have time to grab them. But yes, that would be really cool, and I may create a video on that, put in the group. Thomas, I've actually thrown that idea around. I honestly have, and I may even do a poll sometime and see how many folks would like to get together. I think a 2-day event where we could just get together and open laptops and hammer stuff out would be fun. I really do. I think that would be an amazing creative environment. There's something really cool about having a bunch of creative people in the same room. We get a chance to have them in the same webinar, but I think in the same room would be pretty awesome. So we may actually find out if that's a possibility at some point in time. All right. Anything else before we go? Y'all are amazing. Always, always, always. And I enjoyed these Fridays. Thank you for taking your time out of your schedule to spend it with me. And I will be back here next week, same time, same place. And we'll go over some new cool stuff, I promise. All right. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward to talking to you next week on Friday, 10 o'clock Eastern time.